podcast on the Podfix Network. You can check out more shows like it at podfixnetwork.com.
Welcome to Super Movie Brothers. Let's start the show.
This is for all you new people. I only have one rule. Everyone fights. No one quits. If you don't do your job, I'll kill you myself. Do you get me?
Your career's in my hands.
Never pass up a good thing.
Someone like me is gonna kill you and your whole fucking race.
Am I just dying? Fleet just does the flying.
It's afraid.
It's afraid!
I need a corporal. You're it until you're dead. Or till I find something better.
Come on, you apes! You wanna live forever!
Welcome to Movie Cocktail Podcast. Super Movie Brothers presents Movie Cocktail Podcast. And tonight we are -1. We've lost our first man. Mark couldn't be here tonight. So tonight I'm your host, Super Movie Brother Dave.
I'm your host, Super Movie Brother Jay.
And we are joined always by our good friend, Rob.
Hello, and thank you very much for having me again.
And this is your show, man.
This is our
Absolutely.
show.
No, but I'm over at your place enjoying the company and enjoying recording with you guys, so thank you.
You are a movie cocktail brother.
Yeah. So tonight we are going to be talking about 1997's Starship Troopers, directed by Paul Verhoeven, starring Casper Van Dien, Denise Richards, and no one else that you
Neil
would
Patrick Harris.
Oh, and Jake Busey. How much that means to you, I don't know. So really, I just want to go around the horn. I want to talk about everybody's first experience seeing this movie, like where you were. And we'll start with Rob, since this is the film that you selected last month, and it's the one that won our poll.
Yeah, I'm very proud of that. I love this movie. I just have to say that up front. I think that's amazing. But just talking about where I was, back home in Australia, of course.
Right.
So I did see it at the theatre. I did see it with one of my aunts. I think I wasn't old enough, of course, at the time to go see it by myself. So I took an aunt, and she was a very educated woman. And so when I left, I remember she was like, "Did you notice all the imagery? Did you?" And we'll get into it, of course. But did you notice this? And I was like, "No, I just noticed the blood, the gore, everything else. I didn't see any imagery or anything like that." So I still remember that as my major point of like, I love the movie, but somebody pointing out to me, "Hey, there's more to it than just the blood and guts of a kick-ass movie."
Nice.
You know, so.
Jay, what about you?
Well, I saw this a few hours ago. This is a movie I did not see when I was a kid, and I always heard of it, but never really knew too much about it. And it's kind of what I expected, to be honest, from just hearing about it from people variously throughout my years of living, and then the poster and fun things like that. But it is a lot of fun, and it is a silly but fun, serious sort of mixture of like action fantasy, sci-fi fantasy, and it was really a pretty cool setting, and it's kind of funny to see, Neil Patrick Harris and Denise Richards is hot as shit.
Be honest with me. If you didn't have to watch it for this podcast,
would I ever watch it?
Would you ever watch it?
No.
This is not in your wheelhouse.
This is not my wheelhouse. And this is why I never watched it before. Yeah, I mean everybody knows that, but it was still enjoyable.
I'm surprised you enjoyed yourself with it. I really thought that you were going to think that this film was kind of trash. I thought that this would like not be your
but
type
I expected
of film
that.
at all.
I mean, it's delightful trash. So bad it's so good kind of thing.
Just like another Denise Richards film, Wild Things.
Exactly.
Delightful trash.
Delightful trash.
At least you get to see a lot more in that movie than you do in this.
Ironically, that's the way women used to describe me in college too. He's delightful trash. You know? The kind you drive by with a pickup and you might pick up. You might try to like polish it up, sell it at the antique store, but sometimes It's all right just to have for a little while and then
Yeah.
kick it back to the curb. Delightful trash. So this film came out in 1997. That means that I would have been around 11 years old, probably 10 or 11 years old when this came out. And I remember exactly, when it came out. Internet wasn't around, so I actually caught a trailer on TV, I believe. And I was talking with one of my friends when I was in a bowling league. I used to be in a youth bowling league. And we were talking about how awesome this movie looked. And I remember trying to get my parents to take me to see it. And it's not that my parents wouldn't take me to see a rated R film. It's just they probably wouldn't take me to see this rated R film. It would hold no interest for either of my parents whatsoever. So neither one of them would ever want to go see this. So I think I ended up waiting until it was out at Blockbuster, the old Blockbuster.
When you were working there?
No. I was definitely around 10 or 11 years old when I saw this. So it was just when it came out to home video, popped in that VHS, watched it, and I remember I really enjoyed it. But the stuff, you had an aunt that was like, oh, did you notice the imagery? I didn't have that. What I saw was a kid who wanted to get out of where he was. And then I saw boobs. And then I saw boobs.
The shower scene?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I saw boobs again. And
that jawline.
And then I saw a lot of blood, a lot of gore, and a lot of what I considered to be really cool action. Just it to me at the time when I saw it, it was a film that didn't feel like it needed to be anything more than what it was. And now when you go back and watch it, and you know all these things, like your aunt was pointing out to you young, this film has so much more going on in it, and I think that's one of the reasons that makes it a cult classic. But B, it also just draws people in. Not with that stuff. That's the stuff that you learn to like about it. The stuff you learn to love about it. What draws you in is just kind of like this strange sci-fi military thing. This strange, bugs. I mean, how often is that the enemy in a film is just bugs? Eight-legged freaks, slither. I mean, maybe that's a handful of them, and they were done in such a cool way. Those bugs are
badass.
Yeah, they're vicious looking.
Yeah.
And they literally do eviscerate people. Yeah. And I remember just that part of it. I remember being almost haunted by the fact when the bug kind of falls on top of Rico and
it just impales his leg,
crams the whole mandible, and it goes through his leg, and they pull it up, and then
and it does it on its deathbed too.
Yeah.
It's not like it's just attacking him. It's like, I know I'm dying, but I'm taking you with me.
Yeah. And then you get Rico in his Luke Skywalker back tank, and it's repairing it. But you can see now there's no blood. There's nothing to obstruct it. It's just hanging meat and tissue, just being repaired. You can see the bone a little bit in there. I was like, that's really fucking cool. To me at 10 years old, this movie was bad fucking ass, and not many people saw it. So it was something I'd be like, have you ever seen Starship Troopers? And be like, no. I'd be like, you gotta see Starship Troopers.
They put a lot of money in it.
I'm actually quite surprised by that myself. I've asked people, when I know I was going to be coming here to record, of course, I'd ask people I know. I said, oh, have you seen Starship Troopers, and what did you think? What's your opinion? They're like, no, I've never seen it. I'm like, I'm always quite surprised by that when I
How old were they?
My age.
Oh, really?
I mean, I'm like, how have you not seen it? I thought it was a pretty popular movie. I guess I must have been wrong. Maybe it was more popular in Australia than I thought. Maybe than it was
That's
here.
possible.
Yeah, so maybe it was one of those type of films. But it's also what I get out of the film is because it was made, in the what again was it?
97?
97? Yeah, it was made in 97. That it's a type of movie that may be made now, but it would be made in a completely different way nowadays than it was then.
Oh, absolutely.
It would never get away with a movie with that much gore anymore. Even a rated R movie, I don't think you'd ever get away with that much gore again.
It's true.
Starship Troopers was number 35 of all the films that came out in 1997. And this is according to boxofficemojo.com. Its total gross since then has been $54,814,377.
That is not good.
No.
In what? That's close to 20 years?
Yep. And in its opening, it was 22 million. So, it didn't do fantastic. It didn't do gangbusters, especially for a movie that came out in the same year as Independence Day. It didn't do fucking gangbusters. So, it's always been this film that's just kind of
But DVD sales, cassette sales,
I would think rentals
VHS
probably more so
rentals,
than
yeah.
ownership.
Right.
But I think it's just something that it's kind of like struck a chord for people like us more so than anybody else. And the reason I say that is because, I mean, we're the ones that are now, people our age are the ones that are now ushering entertainment, where people who are like us are the ones who are making the entertainment right now, and are kind of controlling the content. So they were people like us when we were younger, and this type of stuff like really spoke to people like that. And now for some of us as we get older, like for people like Jay wasn't into movies until he was in high school. So he wouldn't
around 01, 02. Yeah.
he wouldn't have found this film back then.
Yeah.
It's only through doing things like this that he finds it and finds enjoyment in it. And I think it's one of those type of films. I mean, that's what a cult classic is.
Yeah.
It has a small group of people that really enjoy it. They go out there, they champion for it. Other people see it, and it grows. Its fandom grows.
Yeah, and they push it to other people. They try to say, hey, have you seen this?
Mm-hmm.
You should check it out. But
So much so that it grossed $32 million more since its release because of word of mouth and stuff like that.
New generations of fanboys and, you know, people that are into those kind of genres that just want to seek out all the old content. And honestly, 97 is not that long ago. So, you know, people are just trying to get back on their film study.
And it helps that this film could have very easily have been a dumb sci-fi film. This could have very easily have just been Marines running across a hardpan desert, killing bugs, getting to the end, setting off a bomb, slow-mo walking away, high-five.
Or it could have been like very much a patriotic, very propaganda-ish type of, for like your typical military movie. We are the best. Check out our military. This is what we can do. Whereas it doesn't quite show it in that same light in this movie. I mean,
like in Clerks.
Yeah.
Ooh, Navy SEALs.
Yeah, like just like you get that kind of opinion on a lot of military movies these days, that they're being made to show the military. You know, God bless them. I'm a military son myself. My dad was 26 years in the Australian Army,
Right.
But they're there to be shown to say, hey, we are the best, or we are going to always be the best, and we can kick anybody's butt.
That's all. That's, I mean, that, not to get too political, but that's post 9/11 world. That's just the way it is. You know, you're never going to get another Oliver Stone platoon.
Yeah, that's true.
We're not for a while. Not for a while. Well, we'll see how things pan out in the next couple of years. So Jay, obviously, this being Movie Cocktail, we can't just talk about the movie. You were up, since you picked the category. You were the one that had to select the cocktail this week. So what the fuck did you make for us?
Well, I created something. I went with Jack Daniel's Fire, ginger ale, lime, and bitters. So it's not bad. I mean, I think for what it is, it's an interesting mix, and Jack Daniel's Fire is
right. So so Jack Daniel's Fire. I had the idea to use fire whiskey, cinnamon whiskey, because in the film there's this beetle. And the beetle just shoots like this orangey acid out of its face that just like burns people alive. And I was like, I don't know why.
Limbs.
Yeah, or limbs. I don't know why, but for some reason, like that image in the film always stuck out to me. Like that burning acid spit just burn. Because, you know, as powerful as the drones are and as quickly as they could cut through things and eviscerate people, I was like, that's more scary. A thing that can shoot like fireballs from its ass and fucking acid from its face. I don't want to fuck with a creature that's also 3 stories tall.
It's also that it's all that, like, the main bugs that you see in the film are the ones that are like running around killing them, the troopers in effect.
Yeah, the black bugs with the orange stripes.
Exactly. But then you see that there's so much more. There's the ones they're shooting the fire. I mean, we'll get to it later, but there's the brain bugs. So there's a whole like army behind these things. So they're more than just like one type of soldier in effect, if you want to put it that way.
Well, there's even those flying ones.
Yeah, you see the flying ones later.
They look
on.
exactly like the drones. Then they're flying around.
Take your head off.
And Ratchak takes that shot at the guy. I expect every man to do the same. So Jay, what? So this is Fireball whiskey, ginger ale,
bitters, and lime, and the lime wedge.
Okay.
Fresh lime wedge. And I just think it's a really nice little balance. You know, I occasionally drink like Jack Daniels and ginger and stuff like that once in a while. And I thought this was an interesting little twist. And I think there's not too many
It almost tastes like
fireball shots, are very popular now in bars,
Right.
and not usually made with cocktails. So
Right.
I kind of thought that this could work as a cocktail, and it kind of does.
It's almost like a Moscow Mule a little bit.
a little bit, and
But it kind of tastes. It's like a cinnamony like Long Island iced tea. Like it's kind of like a cinnamony iced tea. Cinnamon.
you're talking like me now.
Cinnamon.
Like it reminds me of, and I haven't had it much since I got here to the United States, but I don't know if you've ever had aftershock.
No.
You've never had aftershock?
No, sir.
Okay, aftershock is, I guess, it's a very traditional English type of shot almost. It's a cinnamon shot, and basically what it is you would drink it in a shot, but then it's one of those ones that's so cinnamony, but that you take a deep mouthful of air right afterwards, and it's like your lungs just get filled back up with that cinnamon again afterwards.
God.
It's like, it's intense. It's really, really intense. A lot of the bars
Sounds like a good
throughout...
pick-me-up shot.
Yeah, in
like
the
you get
bars
a
in
little
England...
sluggish and everything,
Yeah.
you take one of those shots.
Oh, it is. The bars
You're
in
ready to
England
go.
do a lot of it. Like, a lot of it is aftershock, is what you get there. So it's very...
could see
that's
the
what it
name.
reminds me of.
I would do it.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I know you could buy it here. I've bought it once in a bottle form here a long, long time ago, but I've not had it again since. So, I mean, if you get a chance, check it out, Aftershock. It's pretty good.
Definitely never heard of it. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons I wanted to use cinnamon whiskey was because of the fire.
And I like the idea of that. That was
And
interesting.
you went ahead and said, Fireball's great for shots and stuff like that, but it's almost too strong to put into a cocktail. And you
Too
said
sweet. It's
Yeah.
a little overly sweet. And Jack Daniel's Fire, I've had that I prefer more because it just has a little bit more of that whiskey with cinnamon flavor, not so much like straight up cinnamon flavored whiskey. And essentially they're cordials. They're not even really technically whiskey because they're lower in alcohol content, I think in the 30s, I believe. And it's I just like the flavor better. It's not quite as sweet, and I think it balances out the cocktail a little bit.
You mentioned the
better.
ingredients, but you didn't mention parts. Like, so what is it? A shot, 2 shots of Jack Fire, and
I did, yes, 2 ounces of Jack Fire,
okay, so 2 shots.
2 dashes of bitters.
Orange or
No, not orange, just the regular.
Okay.
And a lime sphere wedge.
Sphere.
Sphere.
A wheel wedge.
Isn't
A
the
wheel
lime
wedge?
itself a sphere?
A wheel wedge, maybe.
Yeah, he just puts a whole lime right in the drink.
I
Don't even cut it.
I
Just put the whole lime.
exactly.
in.
I just like the look of them. Yeah.
Okay, so you cut a lime and you put a lime.
Circle. Let's
Lime
go with the circle.
Circle, yeah.
It's a circle. It's a circle. It's a circle of lime. Okay.
And, so we're using rocks glasses, the bigger rocks glasses, not the small rocks glasses.
Yeah.
And then just topped it off with ginger ale.
And ice.
And ice, and that's it. I mean, it's not much to it. It's very mild, and I actually like it as it goes on. I think you get a little bit more of that lime flavor. It gets a little bit more chilled from the ice. I'm
So
enjoying
yeah,
it.
the ice melts a bit, and it takes a little bit of that fire off
Right.
of the Jack Fire, off of this little bit of cinnamon out.
But overall, it's an easy
I
drink.
think compared to last time, this one's a little bit more drinkable in terms of a lot of them.
Yeah,
Like the other one, I could have maybe 1 or 2, but it was just that sweetness that it was just okay. I'm going to move on now.
It just needed.
Whereas this one,
needed more Bacardi.
I could see
151.
myself sitting down on an evening.
That was my goal. That was my goal.
I could see myself drinking this.
Yeah.
I mean, the problem is I couldn't see myself making a lot of it at home. Like, I mean, unless I got. I mean, it doesn't seem like it would be that hard to do if I got it at home.
It's not hard. It's very simple. But everybody usually should have bitters in their bar. And, and,
Yeah, if you-
limes normally, and it's just a couple of ingredients. That's
If you're a man who likes your drink, or a female who likes her drink, and you like to do cocktails and stuff, bitters, vermouth, both dry and sweet, that you should have those in your bar if you like to throw together cocktails every now and then.
Sure.
So you
So
should
did you
have
come up
those.
with a name?
This is my own concoction. I did a lot of reading up on certain kind of featured cocktails with Fireball and Jack Daniel's Fire recently, and there's not that many. It's just little twists and variations of old cocktails, and I kind of thought, I'll piece together a couple things and just try it with the ginger ale. I think that would balance out well, and I thought the bitters was going to be an interesting choice to kind of cut out the sweetness, and I was hoping the lime would have a little bit more of a punch, but
Well, you didn't squeeze
it
it
still
in.
works.
You
I did
didn't-
not squeeze it in.
You should have squeezed a little bit of lime
Yeah,
juice. Or
I was debating. So, I mean,
I
it
have
was the
lime
first
juice
time
in the
making
fridge. You could have just squeezed a little bit in. So,
So,
Yeah,
but either way, I
don't be
think
afraid to squeeze that lime. A little bit. But yeah, I mean,
Give it a name. Let's see.
Jay's Firebug.
That's good. Jay's Firebug.
I like that. Firebug.
Yeah, Jay's Firebug. There you go.
It's very fitting.
So coming up next, we are going to delve deep into this film. We are going to talk about some of our favorite scenes. We're just kind of going to go through the film a little bit scene by scene, kind of talk about some of the imagery, some of our favorite parts of it, some of the things we really dug about this film as we sit here, drink our cocktail, our Jay's Firebug, and we dissect this film. So stay tuned. And welcome back. Hope you like the musical interludes this episode. The music in the film, the score in this film is not as iconic as something like Jurassic Park, where I can just get kind of like remixes and stuff like that of it and put them up with audio in it. What I'm going to have to do is, what I've done is, I just found some fucking dope-ass rock and roll songs that I really like that I feel like just kind of fit with this film. So, because, this
rock and roll cocktail.
Yeah. But so this film, like just watching it again, I realized that like it's kind of, it reminds me a lot of Gears of War. Or should I say like Gears of War reminds me a lot of like this movie, like that kind of like militaristic society that exists, like Space Marines and just all manner of badassery.
Halo-ish.
Yeah. Yeah,
Halo-ish, yeah.
Just I don't know whether that's this drawing on whether it's Starship Troopers drawing on other sci-fi things that came before it and kind of playing into that, or whether it's these things are kind of drawing from that, or you can even draw a line and say all of these things draw from the original Starship Troopers book, which kind of really started like that whole sci-fi Space Marines type thing. But I don't think the novel is really that popular for people to really be drawing stuff from.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. I mean, I think the whole genre was popular. I do kind of feel like a lot of these games do have to have at least drawn something from the movie, because almost all of them came out well after the movie. So
even your main assault rifle in Halo looks an awful lot like the assault rifle that you see here.
I mean, and then when you think about it, like the Master Sergeant or whoever it is,
Master Chief,
sorry, my bad. But when you look at that, like even his armor, even his armor is like reminiscent of the armor like that's talked about in the book.
Yeah. And then if you watch the Starship Troopers Invasion animated film, which is honestly the best sequel. It's not as good as Starship Troopers, the original one. Nowhere near as good as that. But it's far better than Starship Troopers 2 and Starship Troopers 3. And how do I know that? Because I'm a sick motherfucker. And I watched all the Starship Trooper films.
Now that is commitment.
Right. And I know that Starship Troopers 2 is terrible. It's about brain bugs, but mini brain bugs that burrow into people's heads, and everybody is stuck at this one military base, and slowly, like it's almost like a pseudo horror film. One by one, they're all being taken over by these mini brain bugs. It's kind of shit. Starship Troopers 3 finds themselves with a new Sky Marshal, who is also a recording musical artist. So, and this was made in like 2008, so it's kind of like very topical, where we had like people of celebrity becoming politicians and stuff like that. They were really playing off of that. They were really playing off of the fact that like someone for their fame and notoriety in this world,
instead of what they knew,
right? Because he had served in the military, had become the new Sky Marshal, and he also became controlled by the brain bug. The same brain bug that we see in this original Starship Troopers. And that is the first time in the series that we get the mech suits in Starship Troopers Marauders. They wear the mech suits that are talked about in the book, that we've seen in the book, that they should be wearing in this first movie, but for budgetary restraints and stuff like that, they don't.
Now, Van Diem was in 3, wasn't he?
Casper Van Dien came back for 3. He did,
as Rico?
As Rico.
Of course, yeah.
So he comes back. They actually put Rico to death in that one. Oof. And he dies, but he gets saved at the last second for a secret mission. So now everyone thinks John Rico's dead. Rico, you know what to do! I will say this: as bad as Starship Troopers 3 Marauders is, it's miles better than the second one. Like, the second one is just such fucking trash. And then I watched Starship Troopers Invasion today, the animated film from 2012. Far and wide the best sequel that it has.
I mean, that's got 2 sequels, an animated film about it.
3 sequels now. Almost 4.
sequels?
Because in 2017, Starship Troopers Trader of Mars will be coming out in select
think I did
theaters
see that. Yeah, I
for
did.
one night.
For one night.
Fandom Events presents Starship Troopers Trader of Mars. See it
You got to
for
think that's
one
got to
night
not be a
only.
big budget if it's only going out for one night.
Yeah, it's a computer animated film,
Yeah.
much in the same vein as like your Resident Evil Degenerations, your Castlevania that's on right now on Netflix. Other films, I believe even Halo has a computer generated film out. Yeah, no, it had the one where they took all different anime directors and artists and had them do their own. So Animatrix, stuff like that. It's kind of like in the veins of that.
Yeah.
I even think Mass Effect has done one too.
So it's not like a mainstream, like everybody's going to see it, so that there's a big budget theater movie that everyone's going to pay their money to go see, but it's still going to
marketed to assholes like me.
They're going to yeah.
Completionist assholes like myself.
I love that word, completionist. Yes, definitely.
So the director, Paul Verhoeven, is an interesting guy. Like he's done some interesting films in the back in the day. I mean, he started off, probably his biggest film that kicked his career off was RoboCop in '87, and then following up with Total Recall, and then Basic Instinct. You know, that's kind of flipping it on its head a little bit with a little psychosexual kind of thriller, and then Showgirls was such a weird.
He didn't do Showgirls. He did the made for TV edit, and
he did?
and he did it under a different name.
Oh, Jan Johnson.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
And then Starship Troopers.
And then Starship Troopers.
And then actually last year, 2006, he came back with Elle. And Isabelle Huppert, she won an Oscar for that performance in her.
I want to echo.
movie.
I want to echo something that Justin from So I Married a Movie Geek talked about this week on his fantasy movie draft 1990 films. He talked about Total Recall, and he begged for Paul Verhoeven and Arnold Schwarzenegger to get back one more time before both of them have no chance at a career anymore, or one of them dies. And I agree with that. I think sci-fi films of at least decent caliber, you know, are kind of like going away. You get like great ones like The Martian, but they're so grounded in reality. They want to ground themselves in such like reality and like such that it's almost impossible to get something fantastical. Now, Valerian is about to come out a week after we record this, so it'll have been out for 2 weeks by the time you listener are hearing this. Time will tell on that one, but I'm hearing mixed things. It's just
very
kinda
mixed things.
I miss fun sci-fi. I miss like that type
It might
of shit.
come back though. I mean, you look at the horror genre. For how long was that out that you never saw a good horror movie?
Last
and then
few
all
years
of a
have
sudden,
been
and then
big
all of a
time.
sudden, there's just like every year there's like more than 4 or 5 great horror movies. Like
true.
really scary, shit your pants horror films.
But most of them are more on a smaller scale, and it's because of the limitations of them that make them great. You know, and I'm finding that with like a lot of sci-fi films now, like modern sci-fi films. Moon with Sam Rockwell, Ex Machina with
simplicity.
with
Like,
Oscar
strip it
Isaac,
down.
Domhnall Gleeson. I think of that, and it's like it's almost like what we talked about with Jurassic Park, where it's like when you have constraint. You have a budget, you have to work within it, and you can't do the fantastical. Like, imagine what Starship Troopers would have looked like if they all got to wear the mech suits. If you know, they had Jurassic Park money and can do a proper mixture of practical effects and CGI monsters. I mean, it's mostly CGI bugs throughout the entire film. And you can tell. I mean, it's dated.
you can tell, but at the same time, it's still
For the time, it was okay.
Yeah, it still holds up though. I mean,
Right.
we talked about this in Jurassic Park. You know, I mean, you can see where the budget went into that type of like with a lot of the dinosaurs, where you could tell which ones were generated, which ones were some sort of mechanical.
But not so much that you get taken out of
Exactly,
the film.
exactly. And this is the same thing. You know they're generated. There's nothing on Earth that possibly looks like these bugs in this film. but at the same time, it doesn't take it away from you.
That's true.
You don't not watch the movie going, they're not real.
Yeah. Well, we also have no real world allegory to like put them against, right? Like I always talk about my like when I see films and they try to do an actual animal that we are aware of in this world in CGI, you kind of wind up really being taken out of it. Like I think of
Well, you know what takes away from it?
I think of the bear in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. All the apes look fantastic, but that bear looked like shit. That kind of like took me out of it. Just for that one scene.
Is the lighting. Daytime, when it's like a really
true.
brightly lit daytime, the CGI is always going to look more flawed in that kind of setting and that kind of lighting than, say, like Jurassic Park in the dark and the rain or something like that. You just get a little bit more of a buffer doing it that way. And especially in that time when this was kind of really just kicking off, like really big, grand CGI. It's not bad. I mean, it really isn't. This is right on the heels coming off of Jurassic Park time for the most part.
3 years after.
Yeah, 3 years.
Yeah.
And, no, I mean, it's fine. It's just that, like I said, just the lighting, simple little things that probably could have been improved a little bit more if it had a cinematographer a little bit more up.
So let's run through the film and talk about some of our favorite parts of it. Just kind of like the main story points, and we'll get into like the scenes we really fucking dig. And then after this, we'll get into our behind the scenes stuff, some of the stuff that influenced the film, some of the stuff that really makes it stand the test of time. The more you know about this film, about like the background of it, the more interesting it gets. So this film is about Johnny Rico, a young senior in high school who lives in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And as they say later on in the film, the Latin paradise. And Johnny Rico is dating a young woman by the name of Carmen Ibanez, who is played by Denise Richards, and his best friend is Carl, the lovable Neil Patrick Harris, who also has psychic abilities. That's something that exists in this future world.
Yeah, it does. That was always not kind of explained very well in the film.
It's not, no.
But yeah, it says that he has some sort of a psychic. Yeah, I mean, you see him do that little card tricks that were going on there, but
right, and that is kind of like this world's litmus test for whether you are or are not psychic in some way.
It reminded me very much of the scene in Ghostbusters.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, where he was deliberately getting the guy wrong, and he was zapping him with electricity because he would prefer to give it to the good-looking girl. I was waiting for him to get zapped when he got something wrong.
You keep the $5. I'm getting tired of this.
That was Rick Moranis too, wasn't it?
No, Rick Moranis played Lobos Tully.
Oh, okay, that's right. Yeah.
But so his best friend's Carl, played by Neil Patrick Harris, who has some psychic ability. Now this takes place in 2197, which is 200 years after the film is made, technically. So it's kind of like for me, I didn't know it took place in 2197 because there's not many spots in the film where they really mention that the year. I think it might be in like the corner of the "Would you like to know more?" stuff. But I don't like when they date things, because whether this film will be around in 200 years or not stands to reason. But when it is, everyone's gonna go like, "We don't have guns like that. We're all in cars that fly."
I really kind of liked how like it didn't try to make everything futuristic. Like it wasn't a Jetsons type of setting, real world setting. So you didn't see the flying cars flying around.
They're playing fucking football, man.
And they're playing they're at a school dance with music that sounds like it's from 1997, but it doesn't date it to say 2197. Oh, look what we've advanced into. I mean, of course, when you get up into the sky and see the huge big spaceships and
again,
everything
we come to budget.
Yeah.
And if you look at the point where Rico decides he's going to leave, what he's walking to is kind of like a transportation tube that they have. I don't think they really use automobiles. They don't really use anything fun. So he's walking, his family's so rich they have their own transportation tube that would probably take him to the nearest tube station. You know, I thought that was like kind of, and it's only after watching this movie like 15, 16 times that I realized like, what the hell is that over there? And I saw there's like kind of like a long tube coming off of it, and it looks a lot like the tube that Carmen takes later on. I was like, oh.
And that scene, that reminds me, if you've ever gone to Orlando to the airport.
I've been,
and you have to take the monorail.
Right?
That's what that scene reminds me of right there. Taking that monorail, because it only goes one way. It goes to a stop, and that's where you get off one, and it goes to the other. So when it goes away like that,
Yeah.
it looks like that scene.
I think I pissed my wife off when we were in Orlando in the airport because we take the monorail and we get on it and I jump on it, and every time I think of a monorail, I think of the 1950s. I think of buckyballs, everything like Disney kind of is,
Right.
and I just go, "Welcome to the world of tomorrow." What are you doing, Gary? It's called showmanship. It reminds me of Futurama. Where it's like monorails were supposed to be like the wave of the future.
Yeah.
No longer would we have to bust through mountains to
Like that Simpsons episode too, where
monorail. What's that called? Monorail. What's that name? Monorail.
he sells it to the town and
Mono.
runs away with
No!
the money.
Oh man, that was way off track, but I loved it. But yeah, every time I see something like that, I'm
Yeah,
just
no,
like,
I agree.
like this thing was supposed to revolutionize the world, and
Yeah.
yet it's only used
Yet
in
it
this
breaks
one
down.
city,
Yeah.
in this one country, in all of the entire fucking world. Are we still using the magnetic one rail system? So anyway, Rico, I really love the scene that they do with Rico in class, where Radchek is kind of like, just like, what is the difference between,
What's needed?
Yeah, what's different between a citizen and I forget what he refers to.
A citizen and a civilian.
And a civilian, right. So what's the difference between a citizen and a civilian? And, he kind of gives them, like, the textbook definition. Like, this is where you learn, like, only citizens are people who got to serve, people who served in the military become citizens. Citizens are the only ones that have a say in the political world. And they're the only ones that can run for political office. So pretty much if you're a civilian, the only thing you do is you go to work and you live your life. However, they do set up, like, this sort of class system where it seems like people who are civilians
Get some extras.
are people who are just civilians, though, seem to be the upper class.
civilians, yeah.
Seem to be the upper class, where citizens tend to be kind of like the middle and the lower class. Because Rico's family, like his dad mentions, like, there's no way you're joining up, and he's clearly a civilian. And doesn't
he
want
looked.
to
He looked wealthy. I mean,
Right,
yeah.
he was wealthy, and they kind of set up like this. Like, it almost seems like a class system where because when you get to the point that they're in training, they're all mentioning what one's a farm boy, one's a kid from the inner city who wants to be a writer. Another one is just some podunk woman who wants to be a mom.
That's what I found interesting, is that was she saying that you can't have children unless you're a citizen?
You have to apply for a license to get to have children.
Oh, and
it's
saying
easier
it's easier if you're a citizen.
Yeah,
that's right.
So I found that all, like, very interesting, and you get all that in very small scenes that you're really only getting if you're kind of paying attention. If you're only paying attention to the knives getting thrown in Jake Busey's hands and the giant bugs getting exploded by Rico, then you're kind of missing, like, this futuristic world that they're kind of building, and you're also missing kind of like those references that we'll talk about later on as we get into, like, the behind the scenes stuff. You're kind of missing those little references and stuff, the stuff that really makes this a cult classic.
And that's where the book went into a lot more detail
Right.
with that sort of stuff too. I mean, the movie is very much has scenes that are almost it feels like word for word. Like you were talking about that scene of what's the difference between a citizen and a civilian.
Right.
That's almost exactly word for word.
Would you
from
like to
the
know
book.
more?
Because he's the teacher in the book is like trying to get it, and he says, "Why are you giving me the textbook?"
Ratchak tells him, he's just like,
Ratchak. He's
straight out of the book.
Exactly.
And it's like,
and that is literally, it is straight from the book.
Yeah.
But there's so much that is different as well in the book as opposed to the film as well. I mean, Johnny and his family are well-to-do in the book.
His name's not even Johnny.
No, it's not even Johnny. It's
Juan.
Yeah, Juan. Yeah,
Juan Johnny Rico.
He's a Filipino.
Right.
And that's totally whitewashed off in the film. You're not going to have Casper Van Diem.
Blonde-haired,
especially
blue-eyed.
back then in '97.
A blonde-haired,
always
blue-eyed
whitewashed.
kid from Buenos Aires.
Yeah.
And even the fact that it takes place in South America is awfully interesting, because where did the Nazis go after World War II?
That's true. There's a lot of Nazi imagery in the film.
Stuff we'll get to later on.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I never thought of that.
Rico.
I never thought of that.
Rico just he makes the choice to become a citizen. We do know that Rico's dumb. Yeah. We know that Rico's not book smart. We know that he got a 35% in math while his girlfriend got a 97%. We know that his friend Carl's
He's a jock.
Right. He's not dumb.
Typical jock.
He's just a guy.
He's an artist.
But fuck, he's got some great abs, right? He's got great abs. We see them when he gets his corporal punishment.
He's a good-looking man.
Yeah.
I'm wondering why Carl wasn't looking anymore. You know?
So what winds up happening is his girlfriend is joining Skyfleet. His friend takes the test and gets military intelligence. Carl, who's played by Neil Patrick Harris, and he gets mobile infantry because of his level of intelligence, his book smartness.
You brought that up. That scene is kind of funny. Like from the book explains it a lot more about the scene about how he goes to sign up and how they each sign up and they each get their individual jobs. Like you said, Carl gets military intelligence.
Right.
She's going for Starfleet. He ends up getting MI, mobile infantry.
Right.
But in the movie,
which is the Marines,
I didn't like the way that they kind of when Carl comes up and he was talking about games and theory and
right.
It sounded weird. Like it was almost like it was a game. Like these young kids were signing up, and the names they gave it. Oh, you're going for games and theory. No, I got something else. Oh, that's military intelligence. Well, just call it military intelligence. Don't call it games and theory. I mean, it sounded kind of funny to me.
It reminded me a lot of like one of my favorite sci-fi films of the past like 5 years, big sci-fi films, Ender's Game, which is a fantastic book as well.
Oh, I read Ender's Game in one night. I got recommended by somebody. I read it all through the night. I didn't stop. And the next morning I was like,
but the book is better than the movie.
The book is better than the movie, but the movie's pretty fucking good.
The movie's pretty good.
And it stars...
It flew under the radar.
And it stars my favorite, Harrison Ford. What are you going to do, Ender? You got to destroy the bugs, Ender. Another story about humans versus bugs. That in a book that was written around the same era as...
Yeah, I would say around the same, yeah.
So they each get their own respective parts to play. And we kind of don't see Carl for a long time. But we do catch up with Rico and Carmen. Mm-hmm. Rico immediately goes to mobile infantry, and there he meets Zeb, his drill instructor, and I love Zeb, and I love the cast of characters they put around
Clancy Brown is a classic.
Oh my god, yeah. I always remember Clancy Brown from Pet Sematary 2.
Yep.
So in mobile infantry, he's kind of it's very strange because we know they're fighting bugs, and here's the part that I don't get: was the bug war already going on? Or were they just already a known threat? Kind of like how America saw maybe Russia at the time. Kind of how maybe America sees China.
Yeah, the movie doesn't make that
They
clear.
don't explain. Now, they do say in the very beginning of the film, the movie starts with a newsreel, with a public service announcement, which it's clear that the media is controlled by the citizens in this world. So public service announcements. But I love the way that they made it like a web browser.
Yeah.
It's kind of like...
It was different for the time. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, this is almost pre-internet.
Right. It was internet infancy.
Yeah.
They make it seem like it's something new.
What?
Because of the news and because the
and
father.
They made it seem like it was futuristic when really that's what we do now.
And in the beginning, they talk about
more.
They talk about the Mormons who went to go start out the St. Joseph Academy.
Might as well just said
the
Jews went out there.
The Joseph Smith Joseph Smith colony, and they get destroyed by bugs. And at this time, I guess they're not really at war with the bugs. They're just kind of like a known threat, and clearly a known threat because they're dissecting them in school. Yeah. To learn more about them. I
don't think there was the war until that scene in the movie where the asteroid is flung at the Earth, causing the destruction of Buenos Aires. I think that is when war is declared.
Right.
Even though I think we've kind of sort of, yes, they're an enemy, but we're not at war. Maybe a Cold War situation kind of thing.
It's clear that there's human expansion going on in space, and that's what's causing this level of conflict. But it's not outright war. But what I'm getting at is what they're not talking about is like in mobile infantry training, they're very hand-to-hand combat, human versus human. So much so that like in their training, the stuff that's popping up is
firing lasers back at them.
Right, firing lasers at mannequins shaped like people, not shaped like bugs. And you kind of get this hint between what Ratchak was talking about and between everything that's been going on that the last great war that these people fought was a civil war between citizens and civilians, people who served, who took over. And Ratchak even says like when the citizens took control of the government. So there was clearly like a coup. And again, that's
mentioned a lot more in the book than in the movie. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's almost like they're preparing for something like that again.
Right.
Like a civil war again. Like there's going to be another person standing across from them, firing at them, that you need to fire at them, to be the victor.
So much so that Jake Busey has the great line. He's like, "Sir, I don't get it. Throwing knives? Isn't warfare just a push-button war anymore?" And it's like, "Put your hand on that wall, son." And he throws the knife into it. If you disable a hand, the enemy cannot push a button.
Clancy Brown.
And the guy who plays Clancy Brown's superior should also be recognizable because he was in Breaking Bad. And, I mean, he's been in a ton of things anymore. But Dean Norris.
Yeah.
I mean, he played Hank in Breaking Bad, and he looks exactly the same.
He has not aged at all.
He does.
97, and he looks exactly the same.
I love it.
Just as broad, slightly rounder now. Slightly broader.
Well, same with Clancy Brown.
Yeah,
he looks the same right now as he did back then too.
Sure, and Michael Ironside.
Yeah, Michael Ironside. Yep, absolutely.
Ageless wonders.
Yep.
And when we say ageless wonders, we mean they looked 50 20 years ago, and they look 50 now. Perpetually 50. So Rico goes through training, and he becomes squad leader. It's what he was going for. And they kind of set up like this kind of like. It's almost weird. If they set up Jake Busey to be like his adversary, like they're both going for squad leader position.
I kind of find it weird, that whole relationship between him and
Jake Busey shows no prowess for the job whatsoever. And even when he becomes squad leader after Rico's fuck up, you're like, why
that's
him?
The scene that I don't get as well is like after Rico fucks up, as you put it, he's taking his lashes, he's getting whipped on the whipping post right there, and then Busey's standing back and he's got the little squad leader.
He's
symbol.
enjoying it.
He's enjoying it, but I thought they'd become friends.
Right.
And all of a sudden he's enjoying it. And then later on in the movie, they're like having to protect each other and they're getting tattoos together and everything like that. They're the best of friends. Yet that one scene almost kind of shows him as a sadistic bastard.
Yeah.
That he's happy that he's lost
I just don't think he can separate the crazy of his father. I learned the meaning of the universe by staring into a cat's ass. Jake Busey.
That is,
I can't wait for his motorcycle accident that causes him to become just as crazy as his father. But yeah, so Rico does get his 10 lashes. He does get his corporal punishment because he ordered one of his men to take his helmet off during squad duties during a live fire exercise that wound up with someone dying because they got shot in the head. Now, I wonder...
Friendly fire, too.
Right.
It's not even from the live fire from the enemy...
But would that helmet have stopped shit? He was shot in the face, by the way. So did Rico really deserve that?
I think it was more the fact that what he did than what happened. The fact that he didn't think about what was happening. He got the guy to take off his helmet, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
I think that was more of what it was, that, they were saying, hey, you shouldn't have done that in the first place. Let alone that because you did that, he got shot, is that you shouldn't have done that in the first place.
And this is where Zeb kind of becomes a real character and not just whatever persona he's putting on to be the drill sergeant. Bite down on this, son. It helps.
And yet,
I know.
He spits it out after 5.
Well, I think he's exhausted and just kind of lets everything go and just kind of lays there and takes it. I do love that scene. I love that they get to 5, 6, and it starts doing the slow screen fade away into space, and you hear him count all the way to 10. It just kind of fades out a little bit. I like it because it's very juxtaposition. This is what Rico's going through in his hell, and here's Carmen. She loves every minute of it. So the story changes now over to Carmen, and I always found this scene interesting. So Carmen gets to fly the big ship. She's very risky. She's very ballsy. She takes it within 3 meters of hitting the dock, and then takes it out. And then later on, she changes the navs. Just very she's very pompous about it. She's just check it. It's right.
She's a cadet.
Right.
And she's also able to get away with all this stuff. Right. It kind of shows the arrogance in effect.
And she has too much clearance. Take some of that away. But then immediately after that, a mysterious object comes through space and strikes the ship. And the the captain of the ship comes down and she's like, "Oh, we had a great team. You guys are perfect." No one points out the fact if she didn't change the navs, 600 people that were up in that piece of the ship that fell off wouldn't be dead right now.
And maybe they would have given more warning to Buenos Aires because they might have seen the thing coming.
Yeah, and no one gives her 10 lashes. Yeah. You know, she just kind of gets she gets a fucking good job for fucking up, while Rico is fucking stripped of his command. He is 10 lashed, so much so that
almost walks out.
Yeah, he almost leaves until that same asteroid hits Buenos Aires. I would like to think that it was going for Rio, but because it deflected off the ship, it actually hit Buenos Aires.
That's a good point. If it didn't hit the ship, maybe Rio would have been gone.
That's right. It could have been anywhere else. But
I agree. I mean, just the fact that when she, again, back to that scene when she's taking the ship out. I mean, she's a cadet. She's a trainee. And when you see her getting ready to go up to the ship when she's racing that other girl, she goes, "I get to fly that today."
Right.
You know? And then the fact that when she's almost as a boss looking at somebody that you're training and they do that, you're like, "You're a smart ass.
Yeah.
I don't want you to ever do that again.
Slow your
otherwise, you're fucking fired."
We'll get there someday.
Well, she was always drawn to something like that, even in the very beginning.
Doesn't matter. You don't do it when you're training in front of your boss. You know.
I think what it goes down to is the differences in training between the two forms of the military. Brilliance is accepted and fostered and really incubated in Starfleet. Mm-hmm. Where in mobile infantry, it's all about, it's just like it is in
just doing your
military,
job,
breaking people down to their base level, building them back up into mountains of muscle and tactical thinking, and corporal punishment works in that aspect. Whereas if you were to corporal punish somebody who's going to be captaining a 500,000-ton starship, you might wind up creating someone with some psychological issues. You might wind up creating someone with some problems. Whereas that type of stuff might work in the favor of mobile infantry. But someone who's in command of so many people flying a starship, it might not be so conducive.
I agree with you there. It's just still the arrogance of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're learning something new here, and you're taking it within 3 meters of the.
And can we talk about the guy who's training her? I think his name's Marco, I want to say.
Oh, yeah.
Who's training her. He left for Academy, 3 days before her?
Exactly,
and now he's training her? And it's like, shit, move things. Things move fast in this motherfucker. So anyway, then we get to the fact that
Must be different academies.
Buenos Aires is destroyed. They're also not very good at telling us timely. Buenos Aires is destroyed, and that is when Rico rejoins the mobile infantry. And that's another point where you get to see how human Zeb is. When Rico has already signed his paperwork to leave, he was already going to scrub out. He goes back to Dean Norris, goes back to Clancy Brown, and he tells them, I'd like to re-enlist. I want to be part of this. He's like, "I'm from Buenos Aires, sir." Yeah. And, he's just like, "Yeah, you already signed your paperwork. It's already done." And I love how Zeb just goes up to him and he's just like, "Is this your signature, son?" "Yes, sir."
Just the facial features of it.
"Doesn't look like it's a me," and just rips it up. And I was like, "Oh, I fucking
sly little smile on his face, like,
yeah,
I know I'm doing something wrong here, but fuck it.
Yeah. I'm sending this kid off to die.
Exactly. That's what you want in a soldier, is somebody who's going to have the revenge that you want.
No dumb son of a bitch ever won a war by dying for his country, son. He won by making the other dumb son of a bitch die for his. So we now find out that they are going to attack Clendactu. And we get the big battle scene that is teased in the beginning when the news reporter is saying, "It's a dirty planet. It's an ugly planet. It's a bug planet." And the humans get the shit beat out of them. And it's at this point you might be wondering, where is the artillery? Where are the tanks? Where is the big... The movie didn't have the budget for that.
Why aren't you just blowing the shit out of this planet from the air?
They talk about nukes all the time. Just nuke the bastards.
Yeah.
All right, where are they?
Huh?
Is uranium in short supply in the future? Have we mined it all after the third nuclear war? But and this is the point where Rico meets his demise.
Yeah. I mean, first demise.
Right here, he gets the hole through his leg. The dying bug breaks through his leg, and we find out that he's KIA. And
at least Carmen does, anyway.
Right, and then we find out that he's actually in the back to tank. Yeah. So it's all out war, and every cadet.
That scene's probably as well where it seals him as being, hey, I'm MI. I'm mobile infantry. I'm fight or die.
It also is the scene that he lets go of who he was and embraces who he is now. And same for Carmen, who did that much sooner for him, where she sent him the video message and she broke up with him, where she's basically saying, like, I can't do...
terrible message, too.
I can't do this. I can't be career with you.
Isn't it beautiful?
There. Yeah. It's far more beautiful than your penis. I don't ever want to see it again. Yeah. I got Marco's penis now.
Yeah, exactly. He's closer.
And him and Marco fight. And I do love that scene where he's just like, y'all hear that? Rank doesn't matter.
Yeah. He does some wrestling moves on him, too, in that fight.
And you talk about the hubris of Starfleet. Him and Carmen are the only Starfleet there.
Yeah.
He's surrounded by mobile infantry, and he's like, whatever, I'll fuck him up anyway.
Fight him anyway.
And unfortunately, you might think...
it's not like a normal fight, too. That's like...
You might think Rico wins that fight.
Well, actually, sorry, that is like a normal fight. It's not all punching. It's like grappling and like falling over everywhere. It's like... It's not just like... Bam, bam. And, they stand up and they each take their licks and then...
And then afterwards, Rico gets... After he... I still think he loses. Marco wins. Yeah. He gets drunk and goes and gets a tattoo.
As you do.
As you do. And then really, him and Carmen part ways again. It seems like it's the final time. And they go off to war for against another planet. And this is where he joins the Roughnecks.
Yeah.
Radchek's Roughnecks. And they go off to Planet P at this point.
P, yep.
And they're going after a colony that's been destroyed, and they're going to go find out what happened. And here they find out Planet P is home of a large insect, arachnid, bug colony, whatever you want to call it. They're really, they play fast and loose with those names.
And this is kind of where they start to explain that the reason why they're going down as MI instead of blowing the shit out of the planet is they want to know more. They're looking for more. They need to know what's going on.
Which is the theme of the film and the theme of humanity. Would you like to know more?
Yeah.
And this is where Rico hooks up with Diz, who has been chasing him since they were in high school. She followed him to mobile infantry. She even requested a change to his unit while they were in training. And now she's here with him here, and she finally gets to have him. They have...
You can see why he does kind of think that it's kind of sad of her, though, right?
A bit.
I mean...
But I think in high school, you would find it more flattering than sad.
Yeah.
And he accepts it, and he's finding now in him a counterbalance of someone who's more like him than Carmen ever was. And they have the most awkward sex.
Oh. That's the most terrible, yeah. I mean...
Her shirt gets stuck over her eyes, and he decides, you know what? No, this is good. You have something over your face.
That's right.
I'll pretend you're
We'll
Carmen.
just work with it. We'll work with it. But, my also thought is, surely, with everything that we've seen in the training and everything leading up, she goes in for the fight with Clancy Brown, Zim, right off the bat. Now, the book explains that a little bit more, too, is that, he calls them out, in the first time that he's meeting them, says, is there anybody here that would like to take me on?
And the farm boy raises his hand.
And the farm boy
gets his arm broken.
And it turns out to be a little Asian guy, whose father was a soldier who Zim had fought with, that ends up not quite kicking his butt, but getting pretty close to it.
Right.
And he's basically he while he's knocking this kid out, he's basically like, hey, come back and let's do this again some other time.
Yeah. Zib loves to fight.
Yeah, exactly. But she takes him on.
Yeah.
And she gets knocked out.
But she gets a hit in.
Yeah. But surely she's a better squad leader than Boosie.
Surely she's a better squad leader than Rico.
Yeah. And she's never... Is it because she's a woman? I mean, why is she never in the selection process here?
Let's think about the time that the book was written, and let's think about even the time that the film came out. And let's think about the abs of Casper Van Dien. Clearly, those abs are leadership material.
Yep.
So after their sex romp, they go to the colony, and
just going back to that again is Ratchek, coming and catching him in the middle.
It's almost like he's
coitus. We'll put it that way, of coitus, and he's like, oh, it's you? Yeah, you know what? We're busy going to war, but hey, take an extra 10 minutes or whatever it is.
I can do
20
that.
minutes. Yeah, I can do that. I mean,
I love that. You know, if you've seen the movie, you obviously know Ratchak was his teacher, and now Ratchak is his commander. I would like to think that the reason Ratchak lets them do it is he's like, I've always been rooting for you kids.
Yeah.
I keep my ears to the rumors.
Yeah,
in
I
school.
hated the fact that you like Carmen. You were better off with this.
This is a better fit.
Yeah.
Get it in, son.
Yeah. That and the fact that he's probably like, okay, we're going off to Planet P. You're probably all going to die right now. Get some on right now.
Get it in. So they get to Planet P. They go to the colony. Colony's fucking destroyed, and they get set on by massive amounts of bugs. They call in for airstrike. They call in for air relief, and Carmen and Marco show up to save the day. And this is where Diz meets her demise.
Yep.
And I've always loved her death. Like, I thought her death was...
And that again is a trope that you don't see sometimes in all the movies that we watch these days, where the heroes cannot die. I mean, I love seeing that in movies.
Yeah,
I love seeing that, knowing that you're watching. Now we all know that Rico's not going to die. The movie is about Rico, but knowing that the fact that 10 minutes earlier, him and Diz were getting it on, technically in the movie, but not in the timeline,
right.
Of course. But like, and all of a sudden, she's gone. Like, I love that.
Yeah.
And I always relate this back myself to Game of Thrones.
Oh, yeah.
I read the book and before I watched the show. But one of the big things, I work for a telecommunications company. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
But we sell a lot of HBO. When HBO was first coming out with Game of Thrones, they had life-size posters of Ned Stark.
Right.
And that's how they were advertising Game of Thrones.
He was also the biggest star on the show.
Exactly.
Sean Bean was
but
the
you
biggest
know what?
actor.
Within how many episodes?
9. He lasted 9 episodes.
He was gone. I love that. I love the fact that they could take one of these main characters who they focus so much on. He's gone.
It's a line from the book that doesn't make it into the series often, but the lone wolf dies.
Yep.
The pack survives.
And you give it automatically a lot more respect.
So when you find
know
out
it's real, it's more realistic when you know people can die.
The stakes are
especially
raised.
important people.
Right.
Exactly.
And Ratchak also meets his end here, and this is where we get the reason for our cocktail tonight, the firebug. You know, that they were previously shooting bombs out of their ass, but now they can come out of the ground. They kind of come out of the ground and shoot acid from their face.
We didn't see too much of that, but that was like they were shooting them up towards the spaceships in the sky. They were like laser bolts or like lightning strikes or whatever they were coming out of their ass. I don't know, but like giant big ass fire,
blue plasma balls coming
coming
right out of the thorax.
You don't get an explanation of it. That's just there happening.
So Diz dies, Ratchak dies, and this is the point that they get their extraction. They know that Planet P is the place. Obviously, there's a big bug presence, and this is where military intelligence steps in. And we haven't seen Carl at this point since Carl gave his little "Would you like to know more?" video where he talks about
shooting them
in the stem, shooting them in basically the spinal cord. Yep. It makes them only 20% effective, but you blow off a limb, they're still 80% effective. So shoot for the stem. And we haven't seen him since that point. Obviously, some time has passed, and he is higher up in the military chain. And
I'm surprised he's not Sky Commander by now. I mean,
it seems like it moves that fast.
Yeah.
And in this world, they're not afraid to fire a leader very quickly because of their attack on Klandatu was so poorly received and so many men died. I mean, when they talk about the deaths that happened, it was in the millions.
Yeah.
Millions of mobile infantry died. After the millions of people died, they relieved the Sky Commander of his duties, and they enact a new one very quickly. And that's like a theme that happens throughout the rest of the movies. There's always a new Sky Commander, always someone new, the new idea. And it's almost like corporate America today.
Yeah.
Young and new is better than old and staunchy. Experience doesn't mean as much as knowledge.
Yep.
Or the difference between knowledge and wisdom. It's stuff like that. But anyway. So they are now going to go back to Planet P. It's now Rico's Roughnecks. and
going on that, I mean, how long's he been in the squad? I mean,
like I said, passage of time sucks in this film.
And again, we were just talking about the women of how Diz should have had a leader.
There was a woman who was there before.
There was a woman that was there before, and that knocked out Boosie.
Right.
You know, to say, you know, that he wasn't such a hard ass or whatever he was.
But let's remember,
And also the black guy.
I mean,
he was there, and he was the one that introduced him twice.
He gets his arm blown off by the
that's right,
by the fire by the acid spit of the.
Yeah, you can't have a commander with. Well, no.
Ratchet
had one.
No, he ended up dying, I believe.
Yeah.
He does not show up again.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, I believe more of him got burned than just the arm off. Oh, he's got an arm off.
I'll be okay.
It's just a flesh wound. But it's now Rico's Roughnecks. And I feel like it's only Rico's Roughnecks because Ratchet did the whole, Rico, you know what to do.
Yeah.
And he's just like, I knew you when you was a little boy. You can have my Roughnecks. So they lead the assault on Planet P to find the brain bug. And this is where the movie falls apart for me.
Like, just going backwards as well, like, all of these people die in all of these places. Like, there's, as you said, millions of people died on Clendacdu. Like, you know, how many people died on Planet P before they realized what was going on? Before, like, how many people got into that transport?
I would say far less.
But Diz gets this, like, grand funeral up in the sky.
Right.
Like, I don't see any other bodies being shot out into space.
Because she's the
It's
only
just
body
Diz.
they were able to recover.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, true. But
not to
yeah.
spoil anything, but in the trailer that I just watched for Starship Troopers Traitor of Mars, Diz returns.
Now, is Traitor of Mars going to be its own movie?
Yeah,
it is its own. Like, because I've read reports that
animated
there's-
film, but direct sequel to these. So
I've
it's a
read
direct...
reports that there's talks that there's going to be a remake. I mean,
I'm cool with the remake. I'm
a reboot, remake.
I'm very cool with that. I think I would like to see a modern telling of it because I feel like the series had a lot of potential after this one, and it just didn't get the marketing behind it.
Yeah.
This film didn't do well. It didn't do enough to garner another sequel to the series. It didn't garner enough to hire a decent director or decent writers or anything like that. The same guy has been writing them since the beginning. It's been the same screenwriter. You know, for all of these, Edward Niemeyer has written all of them, okay. And they've gotten worse each time because apparently this guy works in the cheap, or he just really fell in love with this world. Yeah.
Just not that good of a writer.
No, I really don't think so because I think the dialogue in this film is piss poor.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot going on story wise. There's a lot going on thematically. There's a lot going on.
Which is a lot different than
right, but that's all stuff that I felt like he built off of from the story that existed by a better writer who wrote the book.
Well, from anybody else.
I think there could have, in the movie, there could have been a lot more exposition. There should have been a lot more that describes what was going on. Whether it was
one of the few times I'll accept that as a statement. This is the film that actually shows you more than it tells you, and in that respect, because of the way it's written, showing you doesn't do as much.
And it could have done it in that "Would you like to know more?" or anything like that.
Right.
A lot more could have been done in there.
Instead, they do that far more tongue in cheek.
Yeah. Where the kids are like stomping on the bugs and the giant cockroaches or something like that. When a scene that could have told more about what was going on, I felt could have done a little bit more to push the movie forward.
It could have. You're 100% right. So, on Planet P, they find the brain bug, and for some reason, Marco and
well, no, they escaped. Marco and Carmen. They
Marco,
escaped.
right.
Their ship's blown up.
Their ship's blown up.
So they get to an emergency transport out of the ship, which somehow a giant ass ship like this has only 2 people escape pods.
Right.
I mean, that must mean that if this is a giant ass ship, 500,000 tons worth of giant ass ship, that's a lot of escape pods.
1,000 people died.
Yeah.
6 get to live.
Only the officers. I mean, it's a giant ass Titanic. I mean,
exactly what I was thinking.
The Fifth Element did a better job at that.
So they crash into Spaceballs. Did a better job at that. Even the bear survived in Spaceballs. So it crashes into this this cave.
Yeah, the giant cave in there.
And the brain bug sucks Marco's brain out. So Rico, competition gone, no problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
in there.
Rico.
But hey, they're both single now.
That's right. Of course, the Roughnecks are the ones that come to Carmen's aid, and Rico's holding the bomb. He's like, you know what this is?
Yeah. and it's a nuke.
Yeah, it is a nuke.
I mean,
A mini nuke.
A mini nuke, but
Right.
I mean,
Still-
we've never seen anything like this in any of the warfare earlier.
Right.
But all of a sudden, he's now got his hands on a nuke.
No, they do. On Klandaktu, they say nuke 'em.
Ah,
and
yeah.
They get out the rocket launcher and they put the tiny
Yeah.
triangular nuke at the end of it and they fire it off. It is a mini nuke, and all you need for a nuclear weapon is for it to be radioactively charged. So it's mini nukes. Is what it is. But he's willing to blow himself up to take the queen out. The queen has her little scarabs that crawl underneath of her and take her away. The brain bug and everything else leaves. He saves Carmen. He walks out, and they find out the war for Planet P is over because the brain bug was captured by a private named Zeb.
Him. Now that actually is in the book,
Right.
And that's the thing too. I mean, that's you think it's kind of corny in the film, but that was actually now. But again,
Because it happens out of nowhere. You don't see a scene where
With him in it, yeah.
where Zeb goes to his commander and says, "I want to bump myself down to private because I want to get some."
now in the book he does.
Right.
Rico overhears a conversation between him and the commander before the whole when he's brought down from being squad leader. You do actually hear where he is saying specifically, I want to be a part of this war.
Right.
You know, how do I leave here? And they're basically saying, no, we need you here to train people. You know, so you can't go anywhere.
And I really can't stand kind of like, it's almost like the final shot of the film where all three friends are back together.
Yeah.
Rico, Carl, and Carmen.
They've got their
and they're
arms around each
smiling.
other
Fuck the fact that
I want them to walk away and they kick their heels up or something like
you
that.
and I are
or
just
maybe,
best friends.
Or maybe like with what what's his name? The director, like Breakfast Club and you know
John Hughes.
Yeah, John Hughes. A John Hughes ending.
Oh, you want him to Judd Nelson the end of it?
The hand pump in the air. He sort of
Hey, hey! Ooh, oh. I feel like that's how this film ends. It just ends on such a, like I said, 90% of this film I love. The last 10%, that last 15-20 minutes, it all just kind of falls apart for me, and I feel like that is the weak writing.
Yeah,
I feel like that's just
well in the book again. We keep bringing it back and forth, but in the book, Carmen's not in it as much.
No,
anywhere near as much as in the movie, and they're not girlfriend and boyfriend. They never were. He liked her, but they were never girlfriend and boyfriend. Right. And then Carl dies. He dies very early in the book. You don't see him again in the book at all.
Whereas in the films now,
in the end, all of a sudden he's like in charge of. I mean, it must be something to do with the turnover rate or something like that. But all of a sudden, he's now looks like he's in charge of military intelligence.
Other than Clancy Brown and Michael Ironside,
who seem to go backwards. Yeah.
Neil Patrick Harris was actually a big star for this film. Yeah. Doogie Howser is a big hit, so you had to kind of keep his character alive, even if it was just a minor character. So I mean that's where the film ends. It kind of ends on a whimper, and that always bothered me a little bit about it. I love everything else about it, and we're going to get into more of the stuff that we loved about it in the next segment, our shorter segment, where we're going to talk about some of the behind the scenes stuff, some of the stuff that influenced the story, some of the stuff that really makes it really kind of stand the test of time that it has now. That's really making it a cult classic these days. So stay tuned as we get into the behind the scenes stuff.
Call upon our troopers. In this our darkest hour, our way of life is what we're fighting for. The flag that flies above us inspires us each day to give our very best in every way. It's a good day to die when you know the reasons why. Citizens, we fight for what is right. A noble sacrifice. When duty calls, you pay the price. For the Federation, I will give my life. Well, all is fair in love and war. That's what my gunny says. You're not alive unless you're almost
Welcome back, and we're going to get into all of our little bit of facts and trivia about the film. But for this, there's really not a whole lot of behind the scenes facts and trivia. It had a small budget. It didn't do well in the theaters, and it was a little bit hampered by that. But really what this builds itself, what Starship Troopers builds itself off of, is the rich history of our world and the rich history of the book that was written. So, Rob, you did the bulk of the research on this, man. So why don't you go ahead and take it away with some of the interesting stuff that you found in your research?
Yeah, I mean, again, after I hadn't actually read the book before
Last month,
yeah. Let's be honest there. As soon as I knew that this was something that I picked as my book, as my movie, I read the book. I got it the very next day, and I read it within a couple of days. I loved the book. So I know I've talked a lot about already how the book has its differences and how it also has some very similarities.
Differences in character genealogy,
and
differences in military structure, military
and
prowess.
differences in the actual story sometimes too.
Do you think the book is right-wing based, kind of? Because the director says that.
We talked about
from a
this.
quote.
We talked about this
Conservative.
pre-production.
Right.
I think that the book is not right-winged. The book is right-winged portrayed in a way to show the right wing its faults. It's kind of showing the right wing a mirror of itself.
Okay.
Because what the film and even what the book is kind of parodying is communism. It's kind of parodying totalitarianism.
Yeah.
Dictatorship, stuff like that. It's putting a mirror to that. It's showing like a fantasized version of that. And I described it as King of the Hill. Hank Hill is so right-winged that it's funny, right? Like he's so far to the right that it's anti-right in its humor, whereas this is very much in the same way. Like it's so right-winged, it's so over the top, maybe more so for the film than the book itself. But also the book was written in 1950s, correct?
Yeah.
So it might have also been written by a communist. McCarthy didn't catch this one.
You know what though? But I got a lot more from the book. The book for being 1950s, the detail it goes into in so many of the different aspects, like even just the mechanical armor. I mean, we talked about it before, but the mechanical armor that he talks about in the book, it's so amazing to know that was something from the 1950s. I mean, what you think 1950s, they were fighting in Korea. Tanks were new in that time. I mean, they were not long after World War II. You know, tanks weren't new, but you know, there were new types of tanks. But it was still the modern warfare of the time. I mean, I like to compare it as well to The Martian. The book was so detailed in what was going on in the Martian landscape. You almost felt when you read the book or even saw the movie
that you've been to Mars.
That how did he know that was going to be what would happen on Mars? You know, how did he research for something like that when nobody has ever been there? You know, and that's what this is. That to me, the book. That's like, how did he get these? You know, he had to have an imagination that was far beyond any of us, to write something like this,
and an imagination that was far beyond the budget of the film. Because the film, as we talked about, you know, during our synopsis and during our breakdown and our dissection of it, we talked about how the fact that it's all mobile infantry soldiers, and it's all guys in helmets and armor and guns, and you know, plastic armor, you know, not like real armor. Where in the book,
armor.
In the book, no one wore armor. I mean, they were all in mechanized suits. They were all in, you know,
that was their armor,
suits that could actually fight a bug one-on-one, where, you know, it seems like in the film it takes 10 soldiers to take down one bug. And they always mention, like, I think Carl even mentions it, he's like, it's simple, it's numbers, they have them, we don't. And it's, you know, humans can't just reproduce as fast as the bugs can. And the armor in the book is almost what, like, equalizes the playing field, where it's like one suit of armor can take out 10 bugs, where, you know, in the film it's 10 people to one bug, 10 million bugs, 5 million people on the battlefield. It just doesn't, the math just doesn't work. And that was only done because of budget restraints. There are no tanks, there's no artillery, there's no big guns, there's no, you know, I mean, it's just,
except on the bug side.
Yeah, except on the bug side. I mean, you know, 3-story tall beetles that shoot fire from their ass and acid from their face.
That's all you need.
Yeah.
Now, I did find a couple of awesome different types of interviews and articles and stuff like that online. There was an interesting article I found that was saying that basically Starship Troopers was the new art of war. Very interesting. Check that out. It gives some of Sun Tzu's different art of war sort of comments, and then puts them together with comments or things from the movie.
I wouldn't put that past Verhoeven to have added something like that into the film. He adds a lot of depth to his sci-fi films, and this is not a knock. His sci-fi films are very pleasing on the surface, but they're very deep. Further in.
There's a lot more into them. Yeah.
Right. We know that RoboCop is, when you watch it, it's very much a story of a guy who loses his life and gets brought back as a robot who serves up justice. But, you watch that end scene where he's walking on water and you're like, oh shit, this is a Messiah story. Total Recall is all about existentialism. Yeah. So Verhoeven has put, very deep thoughts and philosophy into his film, so much so that in the scene where Ratchak is talking, the classroom, he's a history teacher, but the faces on the back wall are all Aristotle, Nietzsche. They're all these philosophers that have existed that were political philosophers of society, and that is going on while Ratchak is giving his speech about citizenship and civilians, the difference between the two. One takes charge, one takes action, while the other one deliberates, complains, and that's not anything that came from a book. That came from Verhoeven himself, and was put in there, and that's something that he adds to it.
No, I mean it was a very interesting movie in terms of how, and we mentioned this at the very beginning, of how you watch it. You can watch it for just the blood, the gore, the action,
right? As I saw it at 10 years old.
Exactly. But then you can watch it and see the iconography of the Nazi iconography, the socialism, the communism, everything else in there.
Even so, the Skyfleet symbol looks exactly like a Nazi Iron Eagle. Yep. All of the uniforms in the film were meant to look like different versions of Nazi SS uniforms. Yeah. Right, because the film was not marketed to be that way. It was not marketed to be a meta film that was that shines a light on different types of societies in our world. It was not marketed as that way. It was marketed as, come see these sci-fi grunts shoot some fucking bugs. Yeah. And I think people, who went to see it, maybe some critics who went to go see it, weren't expecting, a level of depth that they wound up finding themselves in. And I think the majority of the audience went to go see it, especially in 1997, probably weren't expecting that. And probably, maybe, I'm not saying didn't pick up on it, but maybe weren't, there was a lot more escapism going on then than maybe there is now. Now we want to be entertained in both visually and mentally. I think back then, more so, we were more about visual spectacle, and I think that's what people were looking for at the time. You were talking about Nazi iconography. One of the Would You Like to Know More videos that they do was shot for shot from a Nazi propaganda film. Just shot for shot. Was absolutely done that way on purpose. The reason for that is, again, to just show that level of meta-ness, just to show that level of what this society is and what it becomes.
We've grown into.
Right. What and I think what a writer eventually saw us going towards, a more of a communist type, right? A more of a communist type world. And if you think about it, when the book was written, the world kind of felt like it was falling to communism, right? Like, democracy seemed to be dying at that point. At one point, Russia becomes communism, and they're a world power. And the next thing you know, North Korea is
that domino effect,
falling.
as they call it.
North Vietnam's falling.
Vietnam, Malaysia, and all of a sudden you've got the whole South Asian area is gone. I mean, and then what's next? Moving into India, with the second highest population in the world.
For America at the time in the 1950s, it felt like we were soon to be surrounded by communism, which is how you get into the McCarthy trials and stuff like that. And how the writer of Starship Troopers did not go on trial at some point. The book might have come out sometime after the McCarthyism, but I find that very interesting. That like that is where he kind of saw the future going in 2197.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, this is an interesting fact that I didn't even know at all, but Starship Troopers was nominated for an Academy Award. Did you know that?
Not until this minute, motherfucker.
It's like a Suicide Squad thing where like
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Starship Troopers was nominated for a number of awards in 1998, including the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects.
Fair enough. We did talk about how they hold up.
It did win a Saturn Award for Best Costume and Best Special Effects, and it won the 1998 Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films USA Awards. At the USA Awards.
All right.
So, I mean, it does fit that bill. I mean, it does definitely say that for the time.
Right.
You know, I mean, you're comparing it. You compared it before to Independence Day.
Right.
I mean, the aliens in that. I mean, how different. I mean,
even then, one of the things I could point to
they were puppets almost
about Independence Day is that still followed the Jurassic Park formula we talked about in the last episode. It seemed like that was very 70-30 as far as practical effects for the aliens went. You know, when you get into the air battles, that was mostly CGI and stuff like that.
Of course.
Because there's no way to make a spaceship fly.
Well, somehow no movie has ever had so much ammunition shot in a movie before than this film.
Well, that makes sense.
I'm not exactly sure if that means as far as like fake ammunition, like during the movie, or as far as like real, like live,
it always bothered me
practical
too.
effects kind of ammunition. I'm not exactly sure, but
are they firing bullets? What are they firing? I mean,
I don't know.
Why does nobody ever look like?
I'm sure Michael Mann was upset by that.
They were bullets that they're firing. There is a wonderful waste of ammunition in this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, like, even the one guy, like, there's a bug that's already dead, and he goes and puts his foot on it, and he shoots it in the eyeball, and he gets sprayed with green all over him, and he's just like, yeah. And I was just like, man,
getting his anger out.
Like, you are on a planet surrounded by bugs. Ammunition is your friend. You should be counting those shots.
Yeah, no, but yeah, I mean, again,
like Deadpool, someone didn't count his shots.
When you took it like none of them were wearing anything at all except that armor. Like, it doesn't look like they're carrying anything that has their extra ammunition in it. I mean, those guns must carry. I mean, I don't see even where there's a magazine to carry the bullets in it. So, I mean, like you were just saying, did you count how many bullets you fired? Because those things fired a shitload of
That's right.
Shitload of bullets. But you're right. It's that is a lot. I mean, it's got to say something too about the gore too. There was so much gore in this movie.
There was. And some of it didn't happen live, like on screen. Like it did in Planet P, and it did when they attacked Klandatu. But
the Mormon camp, that was just gore central. There was people with no heads, no limbs,
and that's the opening part of the film.
Yeah,
that Would You Like to Know More video that shows like all of them, and it's just cadavers everywhere, just bloody cadavers everywhere.
And think about it this way. Everybody in position of power in this movie is kind of scarred. You know, they're missing an arm, they're amputated, they're missing legs, you know, whatever. Like it,
and that goes into the fact that every single citizen, who are the people who are in power in this world, have served.
Exactly. Yeah.
But what I really dislike is that they never got into what wars were fought before.
Yeah.
I mean, it's clearly like I said,
it's clearly is the Sky Marshal the person that's in charge of like everything, or is he just?
This movie could have been awesome as a mini series.
Right.
Like, give it its time, because this obviously had
there's a lot to talk about.
This had a lot going on where it could have been really interesting if they had the time and budget to really spread it out over a course of like 8 to 10 episodes, perhaps.
I think I think about something we talked about is awesome a couple weeks ago when we did our underrated films, and my number one underrated film is Dread 3D. And Dread 3D, unfortunately, didn't get the box office to do a proper sequel. It's got some comic book sequels, and now it has its TV series, Mega City 1, coming out. I think this, more so than what Rob was talking about before, a reboot, a remake, something of it coming out and redoing Starship Troopers. I think more so than that, what Jay's talking about is what I would enjoy more. Something along the lines of like a television series, something of a mini series, something. Yeah. I mean, it could start out as a mini series,
TV series. Like it tells, like I mean, like an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. sort of situation where it's where it's behind the scenes. It's not the same characters, but it's somebody else in the MI or something like that
Right.
that tells more of the story. Maybe he's not a rich kid that joined the military to get away from his family or whatnot. Maybe there's a whole different type of a story, but it ties in somehow with the major movies and all that
You
sort
don't
of
even
stuff.
need to. You can do it as a companion to either the book or a companion to the movie, where you follow a different group of people.
I actually think that Netflix would be a good
Oh
would
yeah,
be.
definitely.
company to actually do
Definitely.
that.
But
you
when
know?
but when I think about things like this, this is one of those cases where the movie is awesome, but the movie isn't awesome for so much of what you're shown. The movie's awesome for what you're not shown. The movie's awesome for what for what's implied more so than what is actually going on. I still love
Because you want to know more.
right? Because it's the theme of the film.
Yeah, I want to know more.
Would you like to know
Where
more?
where can I click? I want to know more.
And if you want to know more about Movie Cocktail Podcast, we're going to talk about what's coming up next. So next month, Rob is going to be selecting his theme for next month. So Rob, what do you got for the theme for next month?
So I'm kind of new to this whole thing.
Right.
So I'm the new one to Movie Cocktail and everything like that. So I'm going to play it safe.
Okay. You don't want to
Okay.
go too niche
I don't want
just
to
yet?
go too niche right now. Maybe on my next pick, maybe I'll go a little bit different. But
Jay played it safe, too,
I also wanted to go with something that I actually enjoyed watching as well, and reading and everything like that. So I've decided to go with Marvel origin superhero movies.
And you're not talking about MCU, right?
We're not talking about just MCU. We're
anything
talking about
Marvel.
Marvel that has that Marvel stamp on it.
So if I want to say Dolph Lundgren Punisher, that is okay. 1980s Dolph Lundgren Punisher. Does that fit the bill? He's like, shit, I might want to backtrack because I don't want to watch that.
Yeah, I mean yes, we will say that will be in there. Yes, that is. It has that
Technically.
Marvel stamp on it.
Sure.
So.
It is not my pick. All right, so Marvel origin story. So it has to be an origin story of a Marvel superhero.
Yes.
So what do you have for your pick for this?
Me, you know what? You kind of hitting on something similar to there, and in my own podcast, the Fan Film Boys, we talked a couple of episodes ago about the Thomas Jane movie fan film Dirty Laundry.
Right, which me and Jay
So-
just talked about on a recent episode, and
So
we told
I am
everyone to go
gonna
check
go-
out your podcast for it. So.
Thank you very much. We love it. I am going to go with the Punisher, the Thomas Jane Punisher, though. That's going to be my pick.
Which is an interesting take on a Marvel character.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's not that they change the origin, it's that they change how it happened. They change the location. They change a lot of things. But I like that movie.
I liked him. I think Thomas
I didn't
Jane's
like
very-
Travolta.
It's
but
enjoyable.
I liked
No.
him.
No, but
It is
Travolta looked like plastic in that movie.
Right. Now, something you don't know, Rob, is Movie Cocktail Podcast, we mentioned in the first episode, was a podcast that me and Jay did
I was wondering if you're going to bring this up.
before Super Movie Brothers. Super Movie Brothers is a thing now. Movie Cocktail has come back as part of
Our side piece.
under our banners, a side piece. And the first movie we ever did in Movie Cocktail is The Punisher.
Okay, well, there you go.
But that episode is not just lost to the internet, it's lost to my hard drives. I don't have that episode.
It's
So
literally
it's the-
gone.
and I have a lot of things rolling through my head about what I would
There you
like
go,
to
there
correct
you
about
go.
what I did before. So, again, as I rooted for you last time with
Yep.
Starship Troopers,
You bring it back again.
kind of rooting for you again with The Punishers. I would love a chance to read.
So what about you?
Talking about that film.
What are
Me,
you going for?
yeah, me. I'm gonna go with 2000 and I believe it was 2002's Sam Raimi Spider-Man. I feel like in the wake of Homecoming and in the aftermath of everything that happened with the Amazing Spider-Man series, I'd like to go back to Sam Raimi's Spider-Man more because I feel like a lot of people don't give it enough credit these days. I don't think that
Or slightly forgotten.
Right. I mean, I spent the weekend before recording this where I actually watched Spider-Man 2 and, unfortunately, Spider-Man 3. But really, I watched Spider-Man 3 because, for some reason, it was a bad comic book film weekend for me. I watched Batman Forever, Batman and Robin, and then I watched Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 3. And the only good film in that I was 1 for 4. It was Spider-Man 2. And I found myself just really enjoying just the kind of style that Sam Raimi brought. And I even found some things to enjoy in Spider-Man 3. Overall, the bad outweighed the good. But I really just kind of want to go back to that. I want to look at Spider-Man 1 again with a more critical eye, and the gears are turning for helping you make a drink for that. So, Jay, what do you got for superhero origin? Marvel superhero origin.
I have to go with 2008's Iron Man. This obviously is the film that kicked off the MCU, and
To say it's not even an origin for a character; it's an origin for a universe.
Exactly. So, I love this fucking movie, and it kicked it off beautifully. And I
Just
love
that end scene.
I was literally just gonna say that the end scene alone reminds me of like the whole thing with Game of Thrones that we were talking about, where it's set up where it's gonna lead into something, and then it flipped it on its head, and it's like.
Yeah, like
fuck it. I'm Iron Man, bitches. Like,
a
let's
superhero
go.
is somebody that wears
like how every
a
single
disguise.
person. I still vividly remember.
Who just saved me?
Yeah,
you know. I mean,
I remember leaving that theater and everybody was just stoked and just excited and just ramped up leaving the theater after that.
That was back in the day when Marvel wanted to set itself apart from other superhero films, and it's not that in the comics at the time, Tony Stark was known as Iron Man, so it wasn't like it was a big deal to be like, you know what, in our film, fuck it, let's get rid of superhero identities. Marvel has kind of been known for that, where like Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman, they all have their secret identities, they all hide who they are. That's kind of like a main staple for superheroes. Whereas in Marvel, they always played with the fact that some hide their identity, some don't.
But we've never seen this on screen before.
Captain America in the MCU is widely known as Steve Rogers.
Yeah.
He's Steve Rogers. Everyone knows that he's the original Captain America, Steve Rogers. Iron Man is known as Tony Stark and Iron Man. He's both of them. Whereas someone like Peter Parker, who's only revealed his identity once and has since been erased from history, is
in the comic book series of
Civil War.
Right.
Yeah. He's secret. Matt Murdock has been outed, but has since gone back to being secret. You know, I always like that about Marvel, that they always played that duality where it's like some are okay being known. All of the Fantastic Four, who they are is really known to the general public.
They're a superhero.
If you want to attack Johnny Storm, you attack.
You know who they are.
You know who he is. If you want to attack Steve Rogers, you know who he is. Good luck getting to them because they're both hidden behind thick walls and high security. But and then you have other people like Spider-Man and Daredevil who hide their identities because of their more of a small lifestyle. So, Iron Man. I would love to delve into that because I would love to go back and watch Iron Man again. It's been a long time since I've seen Iron Man. I haven't seen Iron Man J since we first started Super Movie Brothers, and I did the live tweet of every single Marvel film leading up to Civil War. Right. Yeah. So I haven't seen Iron Man since then.
I think as well, like everybody knows who the comic book character is of Tony Stark and Iron Man. But now, just like Captain America, we know who that is, and Steve Rogers and everything like that. But it's Robert Downey Jr.
Right.
He is Iron Man.
Right. So much so that they've kind of changed the personality of the comic book to fit
exactly.
him.
He is that person. He is Iron Man.
It's kind of like the whole like Johnny Depp and Jack Sparrow thing where like there's no recasting. There's no recasting of that.
There'll never
kind
be
of
another
character.
Jack Sparrow.
It's just one of those things.
Right. We talked about in our review of Pirates 5 that's like maybe reduce his role and make him more of a smaller role.
It's more effective
but
than
you
small doses.
Sort of thing,
but you can't do it without him.
You can't do it without him. Exactly.
Oh, yeah, no, that series will not last if you don't have Jack Sparrow in there. But maybe, you're right. Have them play a more of a minor role or something like that. Yeah.
So you can go vote for which one of these you would like to see. Now, as we said in the beginning of the show, Mark is absent. He is going to tell me what his vote is. It will be in the poll, so he will put it up there.
Tune in for that. I'm excited.
Absolutely. And you will get to vote for the film that we talk about. Next month, Rob is going to be the one making the cocktail. So
I've got ideas popping around already.
Hopefully
come early, take your time. If you want me to help you out, I will.
Yeah, we'll definitely get something delicious. Hopefully if you're drinking the cocktails along with us, you enjoyed the first one, Mimosa Raptor, and you enjoyed this one, Jay's Firebug. I really enjoyed Jay's Firebug, maybe a little bit more than my own Mimosa Raptor.
I'm gonna go with that.
Yeah. So please, if you're enjoying the show, go on to iTunes, leave us a 5-star review. They really help us out. They really help our show grow. They really help us get found. That is what allows us to fund, things like this. Really drives us to go on and do more in-depth things like Movie Cocktail instead of just like our regular episodes. If you enjoy Rob on the show, please go check out his show, Fan Film Boys, where they discuss and talk about fan films, films that are made in the love of the things that we all love, made by fans just like you. We're actually going to be joining him on his episode, which is going to discuss a Starship Troopers fan film.
We're actually going to be talking about a pretty
Yes.
bad one, actually.
Bad one.
Yeah. This will probably be the first time that we've talked about a fan film that was pretty terrible.
It was pretty terrible.
See, it's interesting for me because I've never really experienced too many fan films before. Actually, this might be my first one, and
It's a bad representation.
Welcome to that rabbit hole.
I'm sure it's an interesting rabbit hole.
I would say if you want to fall down a fan film rabbit hole, start with like something like Bat in the Sun. Bat in the Sun Productions, who does Batman fan films.
Yep.
High quality production, decent quality actors.
But I feel like
and
a lot
better
of times
written
people
stories.
that are watching these things, they don't really care all that much about the high quality thing.
Oh, no.
They want something
no.
original. Oh,
Nope.
really?
No.
You care.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
There is
I don't
some
know.
ones-
This is like a whole new
there
world.
are
I feel
some
like I'm
fan
stepping
films,
into.
and I know we're going totally off here, and we'll go more in when we record. But there are some absolutely amazing that could, when you watch them, you would be thinking that they made by the movie studio. Like some of these
Like
ones we
Hollywood
talked about,
needs to find these people.
Hollywood needs to find these people
Right,
and say, give them a job.
Editor's note. So make sure that you check out that episode of Fan Film Boys, because me and Jay will be joining Rob on that. Also, check out our Untapped app, where Jay is now leaving beer reviews on there for our regular show. So check out Super Movie Brothers on Untapped. And then also, we are part of a network that is the Podfix Network. Please go on to the website, www.podfixnetwork.com. There you'll get updates for all of our new episodes, and you'll also get updates on all the shows that are part of the Podfix family. You'll also get written reviews by me and Jay and some of the other members of Podfix. You'll also get something like original music covers and original music videos from guys from the Who Spiked the Puns podcast. There's a lot of content to be found on podfixnetwork.com, so make sure you're checking that out. Thanks a lot for listening. We had such a great time talking about Starship Troopers. So happy to bring this cult classic back to life just for one night so that we could talk about it. Happy to drink Jay's cocktail. Hope you try out the cocktail. I will be putting the recipe up on Twitter for everyone to try. Have a great night. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks again.